What's up, fellas?
Hey.
Happy to see everybody for another episode of the Blind Pig Podcast, courtesy of bgobsession.com. The pigs are back.
With exciting music.
Yeah, and a new intro.
Got an intro.
So if this thing sucks, I'm sorry. We'll blame it on the streaming platform. At least for the last 5 years, we haven't had that excuse. But a couple good things to get into today. But first, of course, we'll do the particulars. If you're watching us on YouTube, absolutely, please give us a like, a share, a follow, and a subscribe. If you're listening to us on podcasts, reminder, you can catch us on all major audio platforms. Socials, you can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course at bgobsession.com, where I would be remiss if I didn't push you to the bgobsession.com part, because that's the only part that we can actually really interact with. But all fans are welcome. Membership's free. We got a bunch of cool contests going on. I think we're winding down to the crystal ball contest, if I'm not mistaken. Fantasy football is getting ready to jump off. I think our league's full on that one. But there's some other cool stuff that's going on that we love having everybody get involved with and mix it up. So now that all of that has been said, there was a football game on Sunday, and it absolutely did not matter for anything because we probably won't even talk about it tonight.
I think we dispelled the myth that touchdowns in preseason games don't guarantee you a roster spot.
Yeah,
clearly, because we scored one and the guy got cut. It's just, Martavis Bryant, we barely knew ye.
And the guy who threw it got cut too.
But I guess we can touch on a little bit. I like McSorley personally. He's a local kid. He's a gamer. I know we use that term a lot, especially with guys like Taylor Heineke and Hal. But he's out there laying the shoulder down. You could tell he was playing to win, playing for a roster spot. It was fun to kind of watch him get out there and throw it around a little bit. Hopefully he can latch on somewhere, or hell, even our practice squad, now that they did not pass the rule of the emergency quarterback. I don't know if you guys saw that. That now the emergency quarterback must be on your 53-man roster the day of the game. You can't do the emergency call up from a guy who's not on your roster. But
okay.
Other than that, not a lot. I saw from the game. Cool catch, Martavis Bryant. Cool story seeing him out there, but he was playing against like the bottom of guys that aren't going to be playing, and he literally, that was his first touchdown catch in like 6.5 years or something. So
I'm just glad that the preseason is over, man, and we seem to have escaped relatively unscathed, knock on wood, and
yeah,
we have real football coming, you guys. I mean, it's finally here, right? Cannot wait.
That's right. So I guess the first thing that we can talk about is the topic of the day that actually I think was a bigger topic than the cutdowns, and that was that the naming rights to FedEx, to formerly known as FedEx Field, now Commander Field, have been bought by Northwestern Federal Credit Union. I don't know that we need to have a discussion. It's just worth noting. It is big news. From what I've heard, they're getting a bigger cut than FedEx Field was getting from FedEx. So we know it's north of $7.5 million, and maybe Harrison Company can make up for some money on all of those upgrades that they've put into the stadium, because I've heard a lot of glowing reviews coming out of the stadium on Sunday.
Well, I heard it was an 8-year deal, and the interesting thing was it is not transferable to a new stadium. And I really hope they're planning down the road to maybe do like, I'm sure they're going to still have a sponsor for the naming rights, but make it, Prudential Gibbs Field or something. I really hope they honor Joe Gibbs with the stadium name when they build the new stadium. But maybe that's just wishful thinking. But I thought that was interesting that they did not guarantee beyond, this current stadium that they would be a player in it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because it'll be a totally new stadium. So these guys are paying for the existing place right now. But yeah, it makes sense. Josh Harris, smart business guy. Makes sense he'd close on some big major corporate deal for the naming rights. And it always seems to be like just across sports. It seems to be like banking and insurance companies tend to do a lot of these.
They tend to have liquid cash. If you know what I'm saying. And a little extra. Brother Paul, Canadian Hog, has found his way into the chat here.
We were just talking about
the naming right.
We were just talking about the new stadium naming rights and all that. So another thing that, since we're talking about stadiums, I saw where they ripped down the Sean Taylor clothing mannequin. Whatever you want to call that. So it's just it's a little thing. I mean, I really, it was over that whole thing, kind of like the porta potty and the porta potties and the sewage, raw sewage going in the stadium. I mean, after a while, you can only make so many cracks about stuff like that. But I think that's a good sign that they're actually listening to the fan base, and they heard that, most fans thought it was cheesy and not well done and not well thought out of, whether the family was involved or not. So they're apparently working with the family to do something a lot, maybe something that'll come across a lot better and look a lot better aesthetically and all that.
And they're specifically referring to it as a statue, where in the past they wouldn't call it a statue. They're saying this is a new statue. So it seems like it's going to be more substantial.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully. I have a vision of a statue of Taylor in mid-flight, diving into the end zone against the Eagles. That's
the most iconic shot, right?
That or you have either that or you have to include a punter and
going after a punter.
I've also seen the one where he's down on one knee and he's got his hand on his mouthpiece.
Yeah,
mouthpiece in his, you know what I mean? And he's kind of holding his helmet.
Yeah.
And the other popular one I saw was his rookie year. He was just kind of standing there in his 36 jersey. Granted, you got to put him in 21, right? Now that you've retired that number, he's got to be in number 21.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of them that some memorable moments that he participated in.
John, was it not?
Go ahead.
John, was it not you who said they were on the sideline when Sean Taylor had that return against the Eagles there, diving into the end zone?
Yeah, Eric Lecter and I, one of the founders of Extreme Skins, we were covering the team at that time, and we were on the sidelines, and that was in freezing Philadelphia. I mean, it was brutally cold. And when that play happened, Eric and I were running, and they're very professional of us, right? We're there to take pictures, but we're running down the sideline, screaming the whole way. Mm-hmm. And I swear, after that play, because you realize that, hey, we're going to the playoffs for the first time in a long time. And I mean, we both got tears in our eyes, as cheesy as that might sound. But yeah, that was amazing. That's probably
promptly froze.
Amazing moment of mine. I know a lot of you guys will say, well, when we get to the Art Monk Hall of Fame, I didn't do that. But that was probably one of my top couple of moments. So before we get to cut down day, I know we're going to talk about cut down day and all the moves that were made. There were a couple other news items. First of all, Josh Harris did a press conference. I guess the season's about to start, press conference. And I don't know if anyone watched it. I didn't watch every minute of it, but I thought it was interesting, kind of going along with the Sean Taylor statue thing. I thought it was interesting because, of course, he was asked about the name again. And I thought his tone was different for the first time, because I think up until now he's been super dismissive, almost getting perturbed and angry that he's being asked about it, and really shutting it down for the most part, the whole conversation. And this time I just got a different vibe. I'm not saying the name's going to change because none of us know that, but I remember that I think the thing that he said, just to paraphrase, was he said, yes, we understand how important it is. And he talked about that he grew up a fan. And I think he didn't come out and say, and I think the name's fucking stupid too, but it had a little bit of that vibe to it. And it's really the most hopeful I've been. I know there's a portion of the fan base that is tired of hearing about it and doesn't want to change it again. But I think most people do. And that was the first time from Josh Harris where I felt like, he said they're doing research on it, but it's not top of mind. And of course, it's not top of mind. But anyway, I was a little encouraged by that, probably for the first time coming from Harris.
I definitely heard the same thing, and he even said we're researching it, specifically naming the name, like in reference to the name. Now, whether that means he's researching the likelihood of it or the possibilities or whatever that means, but yeah, I think you're right. I think the tone has changed, and I think it's one of the first times that you can kind of dissect what he's saying and say he's basically saying that it's not just on the table, that they're seriously considering it. You know what I mean? And hopefully look, just to go back to the Sean Taylor thing, if that's not a clear indication that these guys get it, you know what I mean? They understand what the fan base wants. They understand what the fan base has been frustrated with. And they understand that it hasn't been good enough. And I think they're more and more seeing, they just put how much money into the stadium? I mean, people have been talking about the upgrades to the stadium since the game on Sunday, and they just ripped out a turf field that had been in Ashburn at Redskins Park for 25 years. It hadn't been used in 20. You know, like they're seeing that so many things were neglected under Dan Snyder. And I think they're really truly wrapping their head around the fact that the name is another one of those things.
I don't think they ever didn't get it. I think they got it from day one. But, to go back to something Harris said, and it wasn't really even in an interview, it came from someone else who had talked to him and asked him, and they may even have asked him about the name. And Harris's reply in a one-on-one conversation was, "Dude, I'm fixing plumbing over here."
Yeah.
And I think Harris walked in, and the very first thing he did is the same thing that anybody does when they buy a new business. I don't care if you're buying the 7-Eleven down on the corner or you're spending $6 billion on an NFL franchise. The first thing you do is take stock of exactly what situation you're in, because you don't know what the priorities are until you see everything top to bottom and figure that out. And I think they have prioritized the on-product field because Harris is fully aware of the fact that if he's ever going to get his money back out of this team has to win. And he may be a fan, but first and foremost, the dude is a businessman. You don't develop the net worth that Josh Harris has, or the rest of the owners for that matter, without being first and foremost business driven. And these guys are, they put business first. And now he may have a little bit of space. They've taken care of the offseason work on the stadium. There's not much they can do now at this point in time to add to whatever else they've done before we do opening day at, I almost said RFK, opening day at what is it now? Northwest Financial
Field? It's Northwest Stadium is that's what
Northwest Stadium. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's just, there's no time to do anything else. The team is obviously in good hands with Peters and Quinn, obviously in good hands at this point in time. And so Harris has a little bit of breathing room to think about something else. And now he can take a moment and answer a question about the name legitimately. Before that, I'm sure he was thinking, can't you guys see all the other shit we're working on around here?
Literally.
Literally, yeah.
You're probably right about the previous tone that he had, Bob. And I just wanted to throw out the last kind of housekeeping thing, which all of this stuff would have been great stuff to talk about, except it's cut down day and we want to get to the football stuff. But they announced in the last couple of days that they put together a search team for a new team president to replace Jason Wright. That they hired CAA Sports. And that they're working with Harris. I guess that's a consultant group. They're working with Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment CEO Tad Brown, according to Sports Illustrated. So that is going forward in the background as well. Probably, I imagine a lot of that has to do with the new stadium. They need that guy in place because I imagine that a new stadium deal would be the primary focus for that person. But
I would think so. I would hope so.
Yeah.
And to go back for a second, one of the things that I found interesting about the stadium naming rights deal, not only is it an 8-year deal without the ability to transfer to the new stadium for Northwest, it has an out for the team. So if we get a stadium built in 6 years, we can walk away from this deal and bid the new stadium out without repercussion at all.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, Harris knows what he's doing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He does know what he's and he knows what he's got. I mean, let's be real. I mean, you know, like there's money to be made. This is still a profitable franchise as bad as it's been run. You know what I mean? Now you look and let's run it the right way and see what happens. It's going to be interesting.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah,
guess we can get
the
down to
one
that
thing I was
pesky thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to tag on to what you said, Derek, and just mention that it feels like it's finally authentic, where these guys say it's all about winning, and it actually is all about winning. Whereas with our previous owner, you know, he can, you know, say all he wants about, oh, we want to win, but it didn't feel authentic. Now it does.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is, you know, one of the first steps towards actual positive change.
Yeah, and this year, this is really the start of the relaunch, right? We said that last year, that like how constrained he was because you still had Jason Wright hanging around in the men's, conference room, and you still had Ron Rivera there, and not sure. I mean, we all thought he was going, but the real house cleaning across the board obviously didn't happen last year. So this is, to me, this is the most exciting. It's the most excited I've been about this team on the field and off the field in probably 30 years. And well, maybe Joe Gibbs coming back.
Yeah,
I rivaled it.
Yeah, I'd say since Gibbs came back, I was pretty excited the season Gibbs came back.
Yeah, I was excited the season Gibbs came back, and then I can't lie, I was excited RG3's rookie year when things were going good. But other than that,
it was a good year. It was a good year.
Yeah.
So I guess we should get to that pesky thing called a roster that, we just went through and pilfered and nuked and did every other explosive thing to. Some quick cuts. I don't know who's been following along, but the ones that jumped off the page, that didn't even jump off the page at me, but it kind of surprised me a little bit, was Cole Turner was one of them. Martavius Bryant, as we referenced before, the guy that all he did was catch a touchdown and he got cut for it. But again, I didn't have any expectations that he would make the roster. But beyond that, I mean, this is just another example of this roster just simply wasn't good enough, and it hasn't been for a long time. There's not a lot of guys that you look at and say we can't live without them.
I mean,
Unless
just
you guys tell me I'm wrong.
To slap you upside the face with it, 5 out of the 7 2023 draft picks are gone. Mm-hmm. Almost the entire draft, and that was a year ago, man. I mean, we're not talking like the first season he got here. That's brutal.
And I think you can make an argument that Forbes is on notice.
I really expect it. I mean, I know I'm the only one that expected it. I think most people are not surprised that he's on the roster, but I wouldn't. That was kind of my dark horse surprise cut, was that they'd let Forbes go. I was a little bit surprised that they let Stromberg go. That's probably the guy that I kind of like. Stromberg. I just think he got hurt, and I think he was a really good college player, and I think he could play center and probably guard. So I was a little surprised by that one, but I think he's still. They said it was with an injury settlement, so maybe he just hasn't. I never know whether that means he really is hurt, or I don't know. I was kind of wonder when they say with an injury settlement, but and then KJ Henry, I think we mentioned him. That was a surprise one.
He was my surprise.
What about you, Paul? Anybody jump out at you that you weren't expecting to get cut?
No, I feel like for the most part it wasn't something that was super eye-opening. To echo what Derek was saying, I know Cole Turner seemed to be having a rough go in training camp and the preseason and whatnot, but I thought he might have an opportunity to be a bottom end of the roster tight end player that we might keep around and give another shot to. But again, it's previous regime. They have no connection. They have no ties to any of these players, and I think that anybody that doesn't fit into what their vision is and what they're looking for, they aren't going to hesitate to cut bait with. And I think that's where a guy like that fell into.
Hey, Paul, one of our longest members at bgobsession.com, Diesel Power 44, posted this evening, how Redskins is it to have a tight end on your roster named Yankoff? Yeah, but Jerkoff tore his ACL, so they really had no choice but to go to Yankoff. That's pretty funny.
And he's one of 2 undrafted free agents that made the roster. So there's nothing else you can say is they don't give a damn what your your draft status is. They don't care what you think you are. If you're here to play football, you're going to get the opportunity to make this team, and you're going to get an opportunity to produce. And if you don't, they're not going to sit here and say that, they have no issue. People say admitting they were wrong when I think that that's an overblown term, but they have no issue moving on if you're not going to be in that, a productive member of the team. They
clearly don't care about fan darlings like Sam, how pretty Sam Hartman is. Do
you notice with Sam Hartman, no one ever talked about his play on the field. Everyone just starts off, his hair.
Yeah.
Oh, he's such a good looking guy. But when you think about it, no one's ever like, oh, wow, he played. No one ever talks about his play on the field. So, it's no great.
Well, JP Finley said a couple of times that most of the beat guys believe he doesn't have the arm, that he could be a practice squad guy, but he just doesn't have the big arm that he thinks they're looking for.
Yeah, we've already done that. The quarterback who doesn't have an NFL arm. So I also heard today, and correct me if I'm wrong or if something's happened on this front, but the rumors were that they were trying to trade Jonathan Ridgeway, and that's still out there. I think Keim said that's not a dead thing.
Apparently, also trying to trade Turner too.
They were before they moved on. They ended up releasing him. I'm thinking, John, to be honest with you, they looked at Ridgeway and they looked at Mathis and they said, "We're building. This is likely going to be our 4th defensive tackle. Which one of these 2 guys has some sort of trade value, and can we get something for him?" And Mathis likely doesn't have trade value. Ridgeway may have sparked some interest. You know what I mean? I don't think they were actively looking at Ridgeway and saying, we need to shuttle this guy. He wasn't a Jahan Dotson. I just think that of the 5 interior D linemen, they're not getting rid of Allen. They're not getting rid of Payne. They're not getting rid of Newton. Mathis, they're looking at cut downs. Ridgeway might have been able to return something. I'm speculating here, but I think that's all that it was.
But I think it also says they at least think Mathis has some ceiling.
Yeah, that was my thought when I heard that. My thought was Ridgeway can play for somebody today, but my guess is they're looking at him and going, maybe remember, Ridgeway was drafted by some of these defensive coaches in Dallas. So he doesn't have just one season with them. He's got history with them from 2 years ago. So they're probably looking at what he was doing 2 years ago and what he's doing now and going, this guy's pretty close to his ceiling. He's got decent tape. We may be able to get something for him. Mathis, on the other hand, may have more upside because he has almost no reps in the NFL at this point in his career.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is if there's any staff that knows Ridgeway, it's, Quinn and them. They were there when Dallas let Ridgeway walk. So they probably know something we don't.
Dallas did not actually let him walk, Tony. They wanted to keep him, They were shuttling players back
Yeah.
and forth between the practice squad and the active
Yeah,
roster.
we kind of caught them. We caught them off.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
were
but
juggling
then at the same
injuries.
time, they let it. They didn't like shuttle some other guys. They shuttled.
No, they didn't. But the news here in Dallas, the team was really upset that we bagged him. He wasn't a player that they were high on right then at the moment, but they really felt like he was one for the future. And they didn't think anybody was going to come in for him. That's why they shuttled. That's why he's one of the guys that was shuttled back and forth, because they didn't think there would be any interest. And then Washington snatched him. Dallas was not happy about that. At least that's the way it was reported here.
I kind of like your theory, Derek, how they feel like maybe Ridgway was one of those guys that had some value and they might be able to get something for him. Ironically, when you look back at the New England game, now granted it was the third preseason game, but if there was one player that stood out that night more so than anybody else on our roster, at least defensively, I thought it was John Ridgway. So there might be some merit in what you were throwing out there.
Yeah, and to be fair, too, the Patriots were playing their starters, especially on offense for a long time, because they wanted to see their quarterback. So I don't know how good the Patriots' offensive line is, but at least Ridgway was playing against starter NFL players.
Well, and the KJ Henry's the one that had the hit on Brissett that ended up, and he didn't. So apparently, if you play well against the Patriots in the last preseason game, and maybe I'm saying this half tongue in cheek, but there is something there that maybe they're looking at the guys that played well in that, and they're saying who can we maybe spin for something, even if it's a sixth round pick or something. So, we've talked about our surprises. I'm curious if you guys been following along. Is there anybody that hit the market that you wouldn't mind us taking a look at?
Well, I saw Frank Gore came available, and I'm like, then I started looking at like, oh my gosh, man, he's 41. I was thinking he could kind of be, a Bobby Wagner type, but we're pretty solid. I think we have a pretty solid running back room already, and so I don't think
I'm going to blow your mind for a second here, John. I think that was his son.
That's Frank Gore Jr.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know a damn thing about Frank Gore Jr. So.
Yeah,
it's
kind of crazy that you're even. It's 41 and his kids just got cut from an NFL team.
Maybe we can bring both of them in.
I don't. A LeBron and Bronny situation.
I think the wide receiver from that Denver cut loose.
Tim Patrick.
He got signed though. Apparently,
Detroit.
Because he's a vet, he could just go ahead and be signed. So I think he got signed by somebody already. But I really do feel like we need one more really reliable wide receiver and maybe a cornerback. Those not that that's any shock, but those are the two areas that I have the most concern about.
I was flipping through the cornerbacks and none of the names caught my eye.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how he fits, if he would fit into what our team wants to do, or I'm also not even sure if he, has been claimed by anybody else. But did Carolina not release a wide receiver who was a higher end pick for them, Terrace Marshall, potentially?
Yep.
And apparently he had a pretty good training camp as well. So I wonder if that would be someone that, you have him on your list. Okay.
I gotta ask, why is a third round draft pick that had a reportedly really good training camp getting cut
by a bad team?
Yeah, I don't know. The good thing is, the gyms that are going to get cut, because there will be some guys that are like still really talented that got released today. Then the good thing is we're number 2. I believe we're second on the waiver list.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get a chance to snatch up somebody of value. It's just a matter of who the hell that is. I have no idea.
All right, so
yeah, Paul, to your point, if people want to go back and watch, we do an annual kind of a off-season breakdown of players. In a couple years ago, when Terrace Marshall was coming out of LSU, He was one of the guys I spotlighted as a wide receiver when I had that group, and I've liked him. I don't know why he has not performed better down there, but he is loaded with talent. And I remember watching him. It's explosive and aggressive as a wide receiver. And I mean, the Panthers have moved on from DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and a handful of other guys over the last couple of years. So you wonder why, why they're moving on from him. It is odd. Another wide receiver name I saw, Donovan People-Jones from Detroit. I don't know that he's going to be a number 2 solid. I think I don't know that he's head and shoulders better than what we've got in guys like Byron Pringle and stuff. But he's another vet that it wouldn't surprise me if we took a look at and kick the tires on him. And as far as corners go, Caleb Farley. I wonder what happened with him. He was a first-round pick, a highly touted first-round pick by when he was coming out of college. So it makes you curious about why they've decided to move on from him also.
Yeah, I wonder what the backstory is because he was a first-round pick. Because I'm kind of curious why he got cut.
Yeah, it's odd. It's from Tennessee.
Another place with a coaching change.
Yeah. First round 2021 draft out of Virginia Tech. But I don't remember seeing any off the field issues with him. I don't know. Oh, it says oft injured. Maybe that's the problem.
Oh, yeah.
So
and that may be what got Cole Turner too.
What were you going to say, John?
Well, I was going to do this exercise before we started tonight, but I'd be curious to know how many players on the current 53, understanding that it may not be the final 53, what percentage of them were here last season? Because I'm betting it's less than 50%. So that is a hell of a roster rebuild.
As far as draft picks, I think Al-Galdi posted, of the 33 draft picks that Ron Rivera was over, only 12 are still on the team.
Let's see. So I have the current 53-man roster. We have 3 quarterbacks. None of them were on the roster last year. We have 3 running backs. Only Robinson was on the roster last year. We have 6 wide receivers. 4 were on the roster last year. 4 tight ends.
Hold on, time out before you move on. You got to throw Pringle out of that last year because he went off into free agency. We signed him back, right?
I mean, he was still on the roster last year.
He was on the team. Okay, but yeah, I guess he wasn't under contract, but yes, he was on the team.
Right. He was on the team. Crowder was only on the team for half a season. So, but I'm just saying these were guys that played under Rivera last year. How about that? We have 4 tight ends. 1 played last year. That would be John Bates. 1 was on the roster last year. Offensive linemen, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And of the 9, Wiley, Scott, Paul, Cosme, and Lucas. So 5. That is the first position group with a majority that was here last year. Defensive linemen. Davis was here. Ridgway. This will be several. Davis, Ridgway, Allen, right? Kane, Mathis. No,
and Newton.
4.
Newton is the only one.
No, because Jean-Baptiste was a draft pick. Armstrong was a free agent signee.
I was thinking interior. Sorry, Bob. I was just thinking interior.
Oh yeah, no. This is DENDT. Linebackers. That's 100% turnover. Defensive backs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 out of looks like 10. And then 2 out of the 3 specialists turned over.
So that's got to be 60%. That's got to be at least 60%.
Yeah, this is a very different football team.
Yeah, that's crazy.
The moral of the story. The moral of the story is Ron Rivera should not be waiting for a Super Bowl ring in the mail. Then, right?
Right. We'll send him 40% of the Super Bowl ring. Just the part that goes around your finger. The top, he's going to have to go out on eBay if he wants the top of it.
I think that's the closest thing to something mean I've ever heard a Canadian say, Paul.
And you guys know I really like Ron Rivera. I always like. I just liked him as a man. I always went to bat for him. So, yeah, it took a lot for me to say that.
Well, and to that point, if he hadn't have said that, like, you know, that's just one of those things that with our struggle with Rivera, where we're like, sometimes he says stuff in the media where you're like, what are you talking about, dude?
Yeah.
Just let it go. Like, why would you even say that?
And I think this is as much as we've maligned some of Rivera's personnel stuff, to a certain degree, we've got to thank him for this current roster. The only way this was possible was the massive amount of cap space and the minimum number of contracts Peters had to deal with when he came in. Without that much wiggle room financially, we don't see this much turnover in a roster. This is kind of historic.
That part is true. That's a good point.
And here's Ron's who set that up.
Here's the thing. I think I'm just going to be honest with you. I had no idea this roster was as bad as apparently Quinn and Peters and all their talent evaluators apparently decided it was. I mean, I thought we had some glaring holes, but and I'm a fan, so I talk myself into things. You want to believe, that Cole he just needs good coaching. And we heard that within the last 3 weeks. We've heard people saying that they just it's all about the coaching. And I don't think it is all about the coaching. I think a lot of these guys were like mid-tier to low-tier talent. And we talked ourselves into thinking that they had high ceilings. And what this new group came in and did is decided that, look, they're not, these aren't the guys that are going to get us there. And we're going to make massive changes. So I think I've been kind of really shocked at how aggressive they have flipped, the roster. And I think a lot of that is on me as a fan, allowing myself to get talked into assessing the talent as better than it was.
I wonder if it was less a case of physical talent than it is what's going on in their head. Jahan Dotson's a very talented young man. They did not hesitate to move him on. And all the reports are it was mental. So just a thought.
But I think also, and to John's point a little bit, a lot of the struggles that we have as fans is, and we've kind of fallen in love with guys, and these guys are in it. These guys are in it for the business. They're in it for W's. They're in it to make money. You know what I mean? They're not in it for the storylines. And like. How much did we like turning on the preseason game on Sunday and seeing that clip of Trace McSorley running around his yard with a Redskins uniform on? You know what I mean? And we were like, oh, you got to keep that guy. His heart. He's got, when they're looking at it like, this guy, is he okay? Yeah, he played okay, but he doesn't help us win any football games. And this is what happens when there are adults making adult decisions when it comes to roster management and not people making emotional decisions or, and trading away Jahan Dotson, like, how dare you? You can't trade away a first-round pick from 2 years ago. He's too talented. Well, he ain't bringing what he needed to bring him to, so I can win without him, and instead I'll get something for him.
And it doesn't mean that they're going to be right 100% of the time. Somebody that they cut is going to have a great NFL career. I predict that. Somebody, whether it's Jahan Dotson, who they traded, or somebody they released, somebody out there is going to catch on with some other team and at least have a respectable NFL career. But what I love about it is the decisiveness. And I think the core thing that's behind it, which is we're going to put the best 53 guys that we have access to on the roster. And we don't care what their names are. how they got
Mhm.
here, or
Yeah, what their draft
anything.
status is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's clear they have a plan and a vision, and like this is what we want for this position. If you don't fit the needs, okay, you might still be a good player on another team, but for us, what we need, we're just gonna have to
And
move on.
I don't know if it's true or not. I just heard, kind of the Twitter rumors around Dotson were that they want guys that are going to, that are going to win at the line of scrimmage, and they want guys that can block if they're called on to block, and they want guys that are going to contest and win with contested catches, and that they weren't seeing that from him.
Mhm.
He didn't have that part of it. And so, I mean, again, who's to say that's right? I don't know, but I do think it fits with what you're saying, Tony, that they want guys that they have a plan. The very first thing we heard from the coaches was, Joe Witt Jr. talking about, we want guys that hit. We want guys that, are nasty. They told us that right out of the gate, what they were looking for. So
even Witt said it's not for everybody.
that's right.
So
Yeah.
Nikki Javala just posted on Twitter 30 minutes ago. From 2015 to 2023, the Commanders/Redskins drafted 78 players total. There are 16 of those left on the initial 53-man roster. 0 left from the class of 2016. 0 left from the class of 2020. Only 1 left from the class of 2018 and 2017 and 2015. Now, granted, 2015 is, we're getting back there. So guys are getting older. But 2022, there's only 4 guys left. 2023, there's only 2 guys left. The best year we had so far in that run was 2021,
right?
with 6 guys left on the roster out of 10 drafted. That is an indictment of personnel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would like. Go ahead.
It goes back to are we bereft of talent, or are we bereft of talent evaluation? You know what I mean? Like, do we really have terrible players, or are we not evaluating them correctly to get the most out of them, and or evaluating to bring them in? I keep hearing all of these fans, we haven't been able to draft a quarterback. We're snake bit when it comes to quarterbacks, but it's like, hold on a second. We're consistently failing at evaluating talent. And that is the perfect statistic right there to prove that the people making the decisions were the problem, not the players that were getting picked. Right?
I would take it a step further and say it's threefold, right? First of all, it's talent evaluation. Then it's the talent you've got on the roster because you picked poor talent. And then it's coaching, because a lot of guys start out second string in the NFL, special teamers, and work their way up to being starting pros, right? With good coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we've had any of it, Derek.
Right. And I think a lot of it is truly understanding the balance between an overwhelming value and maintaining your plan, right? I think Johnny Newton was an overwhelming value. I bet you if we had gone into this draft and you said you're going to draft a defensive tackle in the second round, Adam Peters would have laughed at you and said, "Why the F am I going to do that?" Right? Maybe not literally, but that would have cost. But because he was there, he couldn't pass it up. Where Jamin Davis was drafted over Christian Darrisaw. Like, again, it comes back to talent. It comes back to talent evaluation. And it comes back to understanding talent evaluation. Ron Rivera he won't ever anymore. But Ron Rivera proved why he probably should never have been a person to have any job that involved personnel. He should have just been a coach.
Yeah.
And not everybody can do it, man. It's, you know what I mean? You got to be good at it. Otherwise, you get exposed. And that's an exposure.
So we're gonna see in the next few days, or in next weeks, what they're gonna do as far as picking up guys off the waiver wire and the practice squad and everything. But we started out talking tonight about how the preseason was over. We got a game. I know we're not really prepared to talk in depth, but we got a game on Sunday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I believe, right? Anybody got any thoughts on
2 weeks? 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm getting excited. Anybody got any thoughts on, or do we want to wait for next week?
We can wait. Here's what I'll say. My thought on it, and we can dig deep in next week. My thought on it is we'll probably see more roster turnover between now and then. We will probably see more changes. You know what I mean? Like so the roster we're talking about now. Don't be surprised if there's not a couple. I think we're going to see a completely different offense. I think we're going to see a dynamic defense. I think it's going to be structured differently. I think there's going to be a lot more speed and impact involved. And I think there's going to be a lot more aggression, for lack of a better term. I don't think it's going to be a situation. I think we're going to look a lot better than we did this preseason. Because again, the defensive scheme against the New England Patriots did not look good, man. Like we were getting the pass rush was getting there, but the rest of the defense looked bad. And I think that was a product of they were putting people in exposed situations to see how they reacted. And I think our defense is going to be very different when we actually take the field in the games count.
I think we're going to own. I think we're going to be so much stronger in the middle of the field than we've seen in recent years. And what I mean by that is we couldn't stop anybody in the middle on defense. The last several seasons, we just get gashed continuously. And how many times have we seen like backup tight ends just tear us up over the middle over and over again? You know, guys having career games against us. And I think with Luvu and Wagner and Quan Martin getting more time out there and just the general attitude and skill set of the guys in the middle, I think you're going to see a huge difference. And I think you're going to see that on offense because I think we have some really good tight ends between Ertz and Sennett and even John Bates. And I think we're going to use them across the middle, as well as we're going to be throwing Eckler and even Brian Robinson Jr. across the middle. So I'm just looking forward to we're not having to throw to the sidelines and we're not getting gashed up the middle on defense constantly.
Yeah, I look for us to be a lot more aggressive on both sides, just like actually attacking, and then like even just calling the defense. What it's going to be, it'll be a nice breath of fresh air to have it be Bobby Wagner as opposed to David Mayo. So I think that alone will help our defense just get lined up properly and things like that. Yeah, I think I don't know what our record will be or anything, but I definitely think we'll be more competitive this year and play with more aggression.
All right,
yeah, that's what it's all about for me too. Just I don't really have expectations early in the season, but let's just see that identity start coming together. We've lacked it for so long, and let's just see signs and hints of what we're going to be about, you know, come November, come December type thing. You know, you want that team to have that stamp of who they are and what their character is. And we were never able to define that under Ron Rivera, and hopefully it becomes abundantly clear the type of team that we're going to be early on in the season.
All right, guys.
All right, fellas. Well, it's been fun. It's been an interesting preseason. Football's finally here. Now we just have to wait 10 more days for it to happen. But we're there.
Or you come over to my house because the game will be on Sunday over here.
I think
I'll be watching it. I'll be watching it with 41-year-old Frank Gore, but not as. I might be the Ron Rivera of this podcast if I'm not careful. Past my prime.
Well, if you really want to feel bad about yourself, go back and look at the trade where we traded back to Cake. We traded out of the 11th pick in New Orleans, took Chris Olave, and see what we got in return. There's your homework for the day.
Oh, Lord.
But, all right, fellas, it's been a pleasure, always. We'll be back next week. We'll actually be prepping for an actual football game. We will have no idea what we're talking about because we have absolutely no idea what to expect. But it'll give us something else to talk about. So,
All right. Good night, guys.
night, boys.
All righty.